Today we talk about the MC, the midheaven, the highest point in the chart. If we use the space-based systems for calculating the charts, which I very much stick to and insist on, this is one of the most important things in my work, but this is just personal. One of the reasons is that MC position in space-based house systems, because it is not just one of the angles of the chart, it's not just the beginning of the 10th house, which is all important, but it's considered to be that very thing up there in the sky that's right, up vertically from the newborn person in the space, in the sky at the moment of birth. And maybe there is a star there, maybe there is always something there. And many people believe, even the ancients believed for a long time, that this particular thing up there in the sky is part of our personality, that maybe the soul is there, or maybe a guardian angel is there, or something like that. We can imagine all sorts of things that we want, but in any sort of way we want to see the MC. I think it's one of the most prominent parts of the chart, and it's always connected to the opposite, to the IC. Many books have been written about the MC, and people speak about it and speculate about it, but the IC is forgotten. Oh, actually, the IC conditions the MC. What happens on the IC, our inner life, our in how can I say, initial background, mostly family, but not always, is what then helps us present something out there in the world or hinders it. So if someone has nothing on the MC or nothing around the MC, but a lot going on the IC, then that would be part of the MC story and expression and meaning as well. I think that's important to mention because that's not very often mentioned. Also, the other two angles are important, but with most house systems, apart from the equal house and the those that are not space-based, the other two, the ascendant and the descendant, don't always cross the MC and the IC at equal angles. So they're not always 90 degrees from each other. So that's why we may have a lot of action around the vertical axis, MC-IC, which is also called the axis of power. But we may not have that much going on around the other one. So today we're concentrating on the MC in particular. In many of its expressions, meanings, I don't know, I'll probably miss something, but we all know what we connect the 10th house with. This social reputation, standing, presentation, the PR kind of agency of the personality, but more in a social setting, in a group setting, rather than as a person. So we can say maybe that if the ascendant is who we feel we are and we present ourselves as individually, then it's what we want to be in the big picture, what we can see on the MC. The sign is important, even if there are no planets there. So through the sign, we can see in what style we are going to be doing this. And if there are planets, that's when it gets interesting, I believe, because there is an agent there. In my mind, the four angles are like gates. And if there is a gatekeeper, a planet or something, or several planets around those gates, then we have somebody or something, if we imagine the planets as personalities, that is standing there and meeting the world and presenting that part of the person to the world. And nothing is more presentable or visible or expressed in a way that cannot be missed than the MC in the chart. That's why we have made this connection, and many people have made this connection between people with planets around the MC, or somehow the MC prominent in the chart, because it could be in other ways as well, like making very important aspects to something else. Say we have a stellium of planets, including the sun, somewhere in the chart, and that stellium is making a square or an opposition or something with the MC, then this MC is also going to be very prominent, even if there are no planets there. So it's complicated. But today we're sticking to situations where people have something going on around the MC, but not just the actual MC line, the crossing line, or the two sides of it, the 10th house and the 9th house. But what we can say is the culminating planet in a chart is not always located in these two houses. It could be located slightly off them. It could be even touching 8th house or 12th house. What I'm referring to here is a planet up in the sky. So a planet which is high in the sky at the moment of birth. And if it happens to be just one of them, but not in the 10th house or around the MC, but just the only one over the horizon in the chart, then it has a similar effect. And that effect is somehow being prominent. You can be infamous as well, not just famous with something on the MC. We're not told, the chart cannot tell us whether the energy will be expressed in a negative way or in a positive way. But what we know for sure is that the people that don't know the person personally, but they just kind of observe him or her from a distance, as a somebody in a profession or as a public personality or an influencer of some sort, uh, will consider that person, will see him or her through the lens of what's going on at the top of their chart. And that's not always in line with the rest of the chart. We can have one personality, which is for the public, and one personal one, especially maybe in cases when things are accumulated around the IC, personal planets around the IC, like the moon, the sun, so on, the personal planets. Then the personality could actually be very, very private and very hidden, but then it shows a different place on the MC, a different face on the MC than what it really is about underneath the surface. So it could be really interesting. So we have to see every chart individually, think about all the connections to the MC. I just want to mention that it's more complicated, maybe for people that are going to watch this, and I don't want to leave them with the wrong impression that just check what's on your MC and you would know for sure whether you have good chances to become somebody famous or somebody influential or something like that. No, there are plenty of influential people and celebrities out there that have nothing, on the first glance at least, going on around that area. But maybe there are more of them out there that do have it. And it's very interesting. When I was preparing for today, I was looking at examples of every planet on the MC. I missed Chiron, by the way, so maybe I have a feeling maybe Dwayne can fill the gap here. But I just forgot about it. But I checked a few cases of every planet, and I'll tell you, which people they are, and just you can see something revealing going on. Hopefully, that these people, for one reason or another, become somehow exemplars of the energy of that planet for the wilder world. And we see what this energy is all about to them. They become agents of it in one way or another. And the MC energy is very receptive to public either acclaim or just attention. Because if we do have a lot of things to express there, it's more likely that they will be noticed. It's more likely that when we move around and live our lives and do whatever we're doing, we would be somehow drawn into the public sphere, want it or not, and we'll have to adopt a public personality that is going to be, either similar or not to who we actually are, but it will be influencing others. So, a few examples, if you want. I'll share my screen with you because I've got a couple of charts, and then I'm not going to go through the charts or anything. I'm just going to show you a few examples, and then I'll leave the rest to you. We've got a few charts prepared by Lauren, by Dwayne, by Jean-Marc. It's just examples which we'll go through in more detail. So we would look actually at those people's charts. But now I just wanted to show you planet by planet a few things. So the sun being on the MC, and maybe I should have mentioned also this thing about different house systems and how the MC changes its position in those house systems which are not space-based, and space-based ones are region Montanus, Campanus, and Placidus is similar, but it's time-based. So not the quadrant systems where we have the MC as always the start of the 10th house, but there are other systems, and Lauren, for example, is going to be using equal house today with her chart, which is fine. And so much can be revealed from that system as well if we separate the beginning of the 10th house, which is more strictly about work in the public, which then is translated into the career choice and the aspiration to what we want to become as a, as somebody that's contributing something to society. But with these systems, the MC could be somewhere else as well, in the ninth house, in the eighth house, sometimes even in the 12th. So yeah, this is just to mention. Now, I don't know why this is not opening the way I expected, but I hope.
Oh, hang on. Oh, I can see now.
Yes, I was just trying to open a chart. Show you. Okay, now it loaded up. So that's Liz Green, the very well-known astrologer. And she's got her son right on the MC. Isn't it interesting? And she's just one of the examples where it seems like this person that has the sun on the MC really needed to leave a legacy of some sort out there, to leave something behind that has their stamp on it, that is also a little bit individual in terms of nobody did that before. I don't know how unique her work actually is, but I have the feeling that it's quite unique in terms of being a pioneer of mixing psychology with astrology in a way that nobody did before, in a very understandable language, getting mythology in it as well, and the whole style, the whole approach that she's presenting. I think at her times when she started, nobody else was that advanced, at least in that field. So in many ways, she is an example of a pioneer in a direction. The sign is so important. Of if we have something so close to the MC, this is Virgo in that case. So she's always been an inspiration to me because I'm a lot, like I have got a lot of sixth house, and feel very, very close to that working behind the scenes kind of strategy, where you, I mean, I'm nothing of a writer, but I admire how much she managed to do as a writer. This could have been, I mean, possibly was a long time spent alone, thinking and writing and researching and checking every detail, being very meticulous, being very really, really into the matter. What could be more of an example of Virgo work well done? And she managed to put it out there in a way that everybody can see that, and nobody can, ever like her or not, like her style or not, like her personally or not. The work speaks for the person, so the work becomes like a representation of the person. And I think she's one of those people that, and I see this happening a lot with sun on the power axis, as they call MCIC, could be the IC as well, that what they give out is more telling about them than what they are as, in everyday life when you meet them. I had the good luck to be part of a seminar that she was giving last year as part of the Mercury Internet School of Psychological Storage. So she comes as a guest every year there, and you can enroll in her webinar. So I was obviously just curious to see her, and she's really nice, very reserved, very Scorpio ascendant, really, but nothing like the intensity that you feel from reading the books and the depth that you feel from reading the books. She's a lot more neutral. At least that's the way I felt about her when I saw her. So this is not an ascendant business. It's the MC business. So here the work speaks for the person. I think that's a very good example. We also have Marie Curie. No need to explain who she is. I'm sure she's got that sun on the MC as well. The little I know about her is that she was also quite private. And obviously that's the kind of work she did also behind the scenes with her husband. There are many other planets here around the top of the chart as well. So maybe it's mixed influences, not just the sun, but still the sun is pretty close. Again, it's in a feminine sign, this time in Scorpio. So we don't see any flamboyant, this typical fame expression. It's not somebody that's out there vigorously expressing themselves as a performer or something like that. But these are people that perform quiet acts behind the surface, but then these acts then have a major knock-on effect on the fields that they're involved in. I also have Martin Luther King, very prominent Capricorn sun here, right on the MC, and this is pretty isolated. Like not many other planets are there as well. Mercury is close, but in a different sign. So that's one of those unique cases of Sun on the MC that's really ruling the chart big time. Ruling the chart not in the sense of ascendant sign ruling the chart, but kind of on the top of the chart. And if you know about his work and some of his famous quotes, I think famously in one place he's talking about climbing the mountain top, and this is the most suitable metaphor you can think of a Capricorn, isn't it? So in many ways he was an exemplar Capricorn, again through his activism and through what he did out there in the public eye. Not that much, something that's really tangible. So it was more of a personality, sun shining out there and setting an example of some sort. I also have Nostradamus. Now, why I selected him, I saw it as one of those lists of people that have that aspect. It's really close. We don't know exactly whether the time is right, but the website claims this is the right time. Maybe it's been researched. Obviously, he was so much into astrology, so I guess maybe he gave his own birth time, and we can take his word for it. But Liz Green wrote a book about him. So I thought that connection is interesting. That Liz Green was inspired by somebody, or her attention was drawn to somebody like him, and him in particular. Maybe not just because he was involved in astrology. There was something more into it, and we have that coincidence of an Earth Sun on the MC, and I think there are many other similarities we can find between the two charts, like his Moon in Scorpio corresponds to her ascendant, and yeah, we can see some sinister here, I think. But yeah, again, here we've got a personality, Sun, which is famous and sometimes misunderstood, or there may be myths about it. And at the same time, I think when the Sun is there, there is always something a little bit obscure, almost like we look right at the Sun and we don't see that way, isn't it? When we look directly at the Sun, we can hardly see what's going on. We can be inspired, we can be affected, but there is also this, mystery about it as well. And one final one. Do you know Richard Tarnas, the author? He wrote that great book about Uranus, Prometheus the Awakener. And then this book inspired Liz Green to write her book about Uranus. The Art of Stealing Fire is her one, and she's quoting him in her book. So again, I thought this is a good chain of connections here that we can see. And yeah, very often people with the Sun on the MC are some sort of intellectuals, if we can follow that line of examples we have here. And I love his work. I really recommend it to you if you haven't seen it. He's got lots of videos as well online. I'm not sure he's that good of a speaker. He's sometimes a little bit, to me, difficult to follow. But he's got this very calm temper of a Pisces. But very good thinker, and the books are also quite interesting. There is a magazine he's publishing. I don't know if you know. It's called Archai or something. I'm not sure if that's how it's pronounced. And it's very high level archetypal astrology in there. You know it, Stephen? Yeah. Okay. Great. So yeah, that's you can get some of the copies online. So if you want to check it out. And his book, Cosmos and Psyche, really unmissable. That's very interesting. So he's somebody in the academic world that is somehow quietly but surely promoting astrology in a way that's not obtrusive, and people start accepting it as a serious psychological method without being scientific. And he's doing great work there, I think, without being too vocal about it. But if you look him up, you'll see that there is a lot going on already. So, oh, I was missing to admit somebody here. Then I wanted to show you a few moon charts. Sorry, it's just a bit. You know why? Okay, so keep with me. Some of those people are controversial, but my point was not to give them as positive examples. You can take them as positive and negative, whatever you want. This is just somebody very well known. I'm not saying anything more. Here we've got the moon right on the MC, and you can see that's the only planet. Must be very prominent. It's a singleton on the top in the Aries, pretty, outgoing and aggressive, let's say, in what it's meant to achieve and wants to achieve. So, interesting chart. Moon in Aries opposite Mars here, and Mars on the IC. So, if you find this one interesting, we can later, if there is time, we can come back to it because I thought this is one of the most exemplary of Moon on the MC. Well, with moons on the MC, we expect that some sort of nurturing, caretaking function or expression of emotion in the public sphere, like acting or singing or performing, could be, or it could be some sort of charity work, or many things that we can connect with the moon. But that's what the person is known for. That's what they're recognized for mostly. There is David Beckham as well, just as a more recent, more like a celebrity kind of person. And I will tell you after a couple of charts why I selected him. We've got Bill Gates, we've got David Beckham, then we've got Frida Kahlo, the famous painter. And she was highly emotional, by the way, and that's through the art and through the personality and all that we know about her. She was a sun in Cancer with so many Cancerian energy planets in her chart, and this moon is basically ruling also the main topics in the chart. So a lot of that MC is affecting her personality. I also have Meryl Streep as an actor example. She's also Cancer, so the moon again. Above in the sky is significant, and she's an actor, so one of those performer personalities. And here we've got Salvador Dali, the painter. And what all of these people have in common is that they were very involved with their partners. So their partners were part of what, either were part of what they did, or and still are part of what they're doing. They either work with them, or they're influenced by them, or somehow there is a very there is always a story with the partner with these cases. Yeah, so maybe that's got something to do with the moon on the MC. This is just speculation on my side. I don't know. And I think these were the examples for the moon. Then let's go to Mercury. Only a couple here. Because Mercury, this is the famous writer Henry Miller. Very typical for a writer to have something going on with Mercury on the MC, but that's not a requirement by any means. I mean, you don't need to have that in order to be a good writer or anything like that. It's just a coincidence, I guess, but I didn't select a lot of charts with Mercury because Mercury is so close to the Sun that usually they go hand in hand. And when we have Mercury somehow positioned, then the Sun is almost always there as well. Not always, but almost always. So I guess they mix up a lot. I couldn't really find anything that separates Mercury, just Mercury. Here we've got Uma Thurman, the actor, and she's got a lot going on around her MC. We can speculate that all those planets are involved in her fame, but Mercury is the midpoint and the most close to it. But usually, what I've read about this position is that we can expect that the person has to be very careful what they say in public, because that can have a great effect, positive or negative. They can be blamed. I think Uma Thurman, I selected her because just very recently, maybe you haven't, if you're not a big fan of her or anything, you may not know this, but she said something about her work with Tarantino. You know, she's very famous of working mostly with Tarantino. That when he was in the midst of some of those sex scandals last year, he was accused of something. She made a statement of some sort, and it was rather, I mean, almost like she didn't say anything, but it was blown up so much, and it became such a big deal that I thought that was an interesting example of how even if you don't say a lot and even if you don't try to, uh, deliberately make a big scandal, scandal is following you if you're not careful what you're talking out there with Mercury on the MC. Then I've got Venus. There's Venus. David Bowie, such a prominent example of style. Someone that sets the style. One of the options we've got with Venus. The other option is, someone like Marilyn Monroe, which I didn't include because she's been talked about so much and the chart has been shown so many times, and I thought you would be bored to the top, seeing her again and again and again. Well, she's got Jupiter there as well. So these two planets are. Venus is mostly typical for this celebrity kind of fame that we are used to seeing and referring the MC to, like personalities that are exemplars of beauty, of personality, which is intriguing or alluring, or if they're very famous with their relationship or something like that. But many, many topics around Venus, including art. So yeah, I think we've got somebody here which is very, very, to the point. And then this is the other option, a bit infamous here. This is King Henry VIII of England with the many. I thought this chart is extremely interesting because of Venus conjuncting the South Node, and there is nothing else around that. He's obviously coming from a place, that guy, that this wasn't the first time that he was involved in drama with relationships and women and power and so on. So I can see how here the MC is also mixed up with the karmic story, and all the aspects are making it even more complicated and so on. So there's so many examples. I don't want to spend too much time. Mars, Roosevelt, the famous US president of the past, he was the one that, during whose time the States entered into World War II. So we can say in some way he brought them into the war, for good or bad. Mars on the MC, the moon is also quite prominent, but a lot of things around the personality as well could be connected to that. What he's known of out there, what is remembered about his presidency, and what even his health problems are, I think, part of that Mars energy there. So yeah, something to explore. Richard Wagner is another one, but here we've got so many planets again in the 10th. Mars is there, right on the MC, and yeah, sometimes there are charts like this one where we are not really that certain. We cannot be that certain which one is the more public, how can I say, public expression, the MC or the ascendant? Because here the ascendant is extremely accentuated with the Sun and Venus on it. And you may say that in his case, it wasn't that much about the MC, but it was more about the ascendant. But you see how they're connected. They're connected with these aspects. And we can say that this chart, we have both of them interacting and maybe reinforcing each other even more. So it's a bit of a Mars, Venus, Sun all together. A very strong personality and very prominently expressed personality. Jupiter was one of my favorite examples, even though, I mean, um, this is again typical. Jupiter, the royalty planet, the so-called royalty planet, or the one that expands and brings us out even more. And maybe that's the most fame-inducing or fame-attracting energy of all, in the most direct sense of the word, where we can expect that there, it's just like an MC screaming, "Look at me, see me, whatever I am, whoever I am," and these people tend to make a big deal out of what they're doing. Andy Warhol is a very good example. I mentioned Marilyn Monroe as well. There are many, many others that I could show you. If you can just give me a second to grab my notebook, where I had actually written down some more names. Here, this was the largest list of names for Jupiter that I saw, like Jodie Foster, Demi Moore, a lot of actors you can find with Jupiter on the MC. That's very typical. And Roosevelt here as well, even though we saw the Mars, but we can argue that the Jupiter was quite involved. Oscar Wilde, the author, Oscar Wilde. We've got Virginia Woolf, with very prominent also. I'm not having the chart, but then Picasso as well, and Frank Sinatra. Just a few examples. And I had selected one chart for today, which I thought, okay, maybe you would want me to show you myself a chart, and that was Jordan Peterson. So I've got Jordan Peterson. He's got Jupiter exactly on the MC, and as an academic, as a professor that then got fame through his academic work and then public opinions about that and other social issues. I think he's a very Jupiterian figure. He's like an example of a Jupiterian personality. And he's a very recent one. I know some of you may like what he says and agree with him, others may not. That's not the point. It's just that we're talking about more the influence here. So I'll show you his chart later if we have time. Then I'll move to Saturn quickly. Here, Jupiter and Saturn on the MC, these two, are considered to be the ones that mostly guarantee, in inverted commas, there is never a guarantee, but like 9 times out of 10, that the person will get prominence, will get attention. But with Jupiter, it usually happens despite or without too much effort, kind of happens naturally. And the person is almost like grabbed by the public and introduced and somehow noticed. And they then go with the flow. While with Saturn, it's very hard work. It's very, strenuous. They eventually get there, but this is an example of late blooming, like people that come to fame or come to recognition later in life for what they did, while in their earlier years, they may have suffered from very poor health, very poor finances, and whatever, and or nobody took them seriously, and nobody really wanted to, see what they're worth. So they had to persevere. There are lots of examples. And here, Beethoven, we know how much he struggled and with what ways. This Saturn on the MC is aspecting many things. So yeah, it's one of those heavy charts. And here we've got Kennedy. There is an ancestral and family history behind that Saturn and Neptune on the MC here. If you know the magazine Apollon, which only had 6 issues and was issued by Liz Green and other astrologers in the early 2000s. It's free online. If you type Apollon magazine of psychological astrology, you would find it. And you can download it. They're very, very good issues, very interesting. And in one of these 6, I just don't remember which one, but there's so few that you would find it. There is a very long article by Liz Green about the Kennedy clan, the whole family, and all the connections. And she talks about, possibly inherited line of Saturnian expectation from the male part of the the family, of every next person, every next male to be somehow a very successful public personality. And that was demanded from JFK as well. And she speculates that there is a family curse going on there. So the article is about the family curses. And this Saturn on the MC in Kennedy's chart is very, it's explained deeper. So you can see it's very interesting. And the Queen, very often quoted, I'm not a big fan of the Queen, I admit it, but it's interesting to see how somebody that is supposed to hold on not just a very stern public office over many, many years, she's doing a good job with that. I can't, say otherwise, of keeping with it and sticking to a code of conduct, sticking to a very like strict norm, also turning things. And this is exactly how she's seen. Not a lot of her real self is seen by the public, even after so many decades in power. And there were so many speculations, good and bad. A lot of people love her because of the Saturn, I think, because uh, we have this tendency as society in general to be looking for role models and to be looking for exemplar figures. And people with Jupiter or Saturn on the MC, I think, very often play that role very well. They exert something from their personality, which is giving that piece of an example that many people are looking for, as as a guiding principle, as a father figure almost. So yeah, she's a woman, but she very much acts as a father figure, I think. And that Saturn Uranus is very interesting because they are all eccentrics or a bit crazy or a bit
Okay.
unusual or somehow, paving the way in a very, very new direction or not being scared to be different or to set a new trend. Very individualistic a lot of the times. So yeah, Bjork, the triple Scorpio example, but here we're seeing she was born in that generation of Uranus-Pluto conjunction in the 60s. And she was born exactly when that conjunction was exact. And not only, but it's on her MC. So I think she was kind of destined to express her eccentricity and her talent in a way. And yeah, it's one of the many, unusual configurations you can see in that chart. But it's not just Uranus here; it's Uranus plus Pluto, so it's even more. And who else I had? James Hillman. Again, we have this like a little bit like with the Sun. People that are not scared to be the first in a new direction of whatever field they are working in. So James Hillman pretty much reformulated psychology in modern day. He is, of course, very influenced by Jung, by many other authors. His son, Lawrence Hillman, is an astrologer that is trying to promote astrology in the corporate world. I don't know if you know him. But obviously, astrology was in the family, and he kind of is not the only one. So I have James Hillman doesn't speak about it directly, but if you read the Soul's Code, this famous book by him, for example, he's talking about the sun there, I believe, and Uranus sun. He's a very prominent sun in Aries, conjunct the moon in Aries, so it's a double Aries energy. But Uranus is exactly on the MC, so I think that's important. And yeah, he says a lot of things. He said a lot of things that were counter to what we read in other astrology books and psychology books. Then Jim Carrey, here a
Mm.
more light example. I mean, of someone that's to me looks like he's electrified all the time, and I know that electricity that I all like he's connected with power, with electrical power, and he can't stand in one place because it's hitting him all the time. And maybe that's this Uranus from above, like the lightning from above that's hitting him somehow. But yeah, I also think that these sort of people with Uranus, they're maybe struck by very good ideas, I guess, very innovative ideas and unusual. So, yeah. Anyway, then finally Pluto, and that infamous Harvey Weinstein that's in the news so much lately. You probably know the story. That Hollywood guy that was very, famous, rich, influential, and it's a story of downfall, big time, after the allegations against him, very plutonic allegations. very typical. Again, South Node, like with Henry VIII. I see something similar between them two. Yeah, Mars and Scorpio in the first house is very involved. It's squared at Pluto very exactly on the MC. So yeah, we can see this. This is behind it. It was this Pluto there is always telling me that was inescapable. Sooner or later, that person was going to be revealed and exposed for whatever he was. If it was something good, that was also going to be exposed. So yeah, uh, Mary Shelley, the author of Frankenstein, you see how they're very different. Nothing like Harvey Weinstein as a story, but that Pluto is pointing to the same theme of it's a Faust theme as well, isn't it? Of how we create the monster. It's like we create the monsters that then eat us up, and it's the deepest, scariest part of the personality. She wasn't afraid to look there and expose it again and bring it out there, and yeah, and at a time when this wasn't that easy, as a woman, especially. So yeah, and that Pluto is again the only one together with Jupiter on the top of the chart in Aquarius. That's also part of the Frankenstein story of, that the mad scientist story, which is expressed through that sign. Okay, that's it from me for now.
About Neptune,
After, yes, Dwayne.
did we not miss Neptune?
Oh, we missed. How could we miss Neptune? I'm sorry about that. Yeah, I've got a few examples for Neptune. Neptune actually, I was saying it's Jupiter and Saturn and so on, but actually, maybe we can make a case for Neptune as well. As I don't know what's the planet that you think is most connected with fame. You see how many charts I've got there. I've got the most maybe. Clint Eastwood, the author, the actor. Well,
Neptune.
it's these Neptunes on the MC are role play to me most of the time, even if you're not an actor. It's showing something that's not always the truth, but the truth about the person. But it doesn't need to be. It's more of having a calling, because the MC can very often be our calling, our task, our, what we need to contribute out there. So I think these people with the Neptune on MC have to play a specific role as an inspiration or as an exemplar or something like that of that particular energy that's on their MC. And they need to spread the word about it. They need to become like a really an exemplar of it. So yeah, Leo, this macho personality that he plays in most of the movies, this like alpha male kind of thing, which I suspect has very little to do with the real person. With this ascendant in Scorpio, and the sun in Gemini probably helps switch roles and have different personalities and play the part and so on. But as we know, everything in the chart is connected. But he's mostly known for the roles, and they are very Leo roles. Another example, Leonardo da Vinci. Uh, we can also say that maybe Neptune is some sort of a connection with a higher spirit or something beyond the other way of speaking about Neptune, of these universal forces, unifying forces that are inexplainable and very mystical, and so on. So I guess that's something more to do with him than in the other case. Monica Bellucci, she's more like Clint Eastwood, but yeah, in Scorpio as well, is that MC and Neptune. So yeah, very, very attractive and provoking actress. Then the Sibley chart. Yeah, that's not a person, that's the United States. And that's the most widely accepted chart, I believe. And here we've got Neptune on the top. Yeah, it's not exactly on the MC, but it's sitting very much part of that image of the country more to the outside world than to what's going on. This is more relevant to the reputation of the country than to what is going on as internal affairs, really, inside the country. And finally, Walt Disney, just another example. When images and, speaking through images and through the imagination, somehow invoking the imagination is involved, we very often find Neptune. So it's just another of these cases. Okay? I was just meant to mention them, so you want to go through, that's going to take many, many hours. I wanted to explore more in depth the charts that you guys have, which are examples of, first of all, we've got a moon on the MC, which Lauren is presenting, and Lauren, I think she's got also another, was it Chiron, but we'll see in a minute. Then Jean-Marc is going to talk about Immanuel Kant quickly, and he's got Saturn prominent on the MC. And Dwayne, maybe you can reveal who you've got in mind and what planet they've got on the MC.
Rudyard with Chiron,
Mm-hmm.
and Geoffrey Boschart, the artist, with Mercury.
What does he have on the MC?
Mercury.
Mercury. Okay, well that would be because there was so little I was able to find about Mercury, so that's great. Okay, I suggest we give the word to Lauren first. She's the lady, and I think she's also presenting a lady, and a very interesting lady that I find very similar to Lauren herself. I don't know, maybe that's just my impression, but that's the famous actress and personality Lauren Bacall that was completely unknown to me until last week. I knew the face, but she's a different generation, so I guess just people my age are not that familiar with the Humphrey Bogart years. But yeah, I even downloaded a few movies with them both to watch and to get more into her. But I was watching a lot of her interviews in the last few days, and impressive personality. Do you guys know her? Yeah, kind of. Okay, maybe Lauren will tell us more about her. This is the chart. I give it out to Lauren now. This is equal house because that's the the house system that Lauren prefers. But in all the systems, by the way, we've got the same Moon and Chiron in the 10th house, and yeah, up there. So we're listening to you, Lauren.
I have even a different chart of hers. I'm wondering, it was not just equal houses, but how it happened to be so different, but it doesn't matter.
Why is it different? I can open something else.
Well, if I could, I'm not sure how to show the chart that I worked from.
Is it a different style? Do you mean that the way it looks is different? Okay.
.com, but what happened is it puts the MC and Chiron in the 9th house, and it puts the moon in the 10th house, all in Aries still.
No problem. I know what this is. This is just a different style of showing the chart, which we can quickly change now. I'm using this angle with Zodiac. That's why it looks like that. But if you go to web, I think it's web default style.
Because I probably didn't know the difference. So I am, would that be?
Is that not the one?
No.
Oh, that's equal house. Are you using whole house or equal house?
Let's see. I'm doing equal house X. It says Astrodinks -AM/equal. Does that make sense?
Maybe it's just equal without the midheaven. Let's try that. And also,
no, I have it on my computer. If I could share my screen, I could do it.
Oh, yes, of course. Yeah, go ahead.
I didn't know how to get, I had it below, but now this screen is taking up the space, so I can't see.
Is it that one, Lauren? Is it this one?
Yes, that's what it looks like.
Now, obviously they have, I didn't know that they have two options. One is just equal, the other one is equal MC, something like that. So this is just
Anyway,
before.
that's the one I'll be talking from, so it'll be more helpful for people.
Good.
Well, first of all, I'll just start by saying I didn't know much about her myself, but I always knew I was named Lauren from Lauren Bacall. I was named after her. So, and I had just finished this summer a book that she had written that is extremely brilliant. And so I learned about her life, and I felt so much harmony with it. She's very honest, forthright, and her life had this MC of her mother left Romania, and they came to Ellis Island, and they were Jews, and a Jewish family. They just, went around with a little cart to sell goods. That's how it began. And they all pitched in, and she was born with this impetus for being an actress, being a singer, and in her life, on her own, she achieved being a very huge Broadway star, as well as a huge, for her whole life, movie star. But she was 17 when she was seen, unbeknownst to herself, as a model. She went in for modeling and she got picked. And by the time she was 19, she was in a huge famous movie. Humphrey Bogart had been far more famous. He had already done Casablanca with, and so she then became a 19-year-old. She was very, very shy. She trembled a great deal, but had this huge impetus to live her life as an actress more than anything else. She fell in love immediately with Humphrey Bogart. They were electric, and he was married to someone else. So it became a long kind of torture for herself because there was no one else in her life but him. So anyway, I just want to start out by reading you the Sabian symbol of her MC. She's in Aries at 12, and it was about individual and mental. A triangularly shaped flight of wild geese. The keynote, an idealistic reliance upon a mental image of universal and cosmic order. And what I really saw in her life is she went ahead and she very much had these ideals she lived by. She was very true. She had a very strong inner core, but the things that happened to her, she ended up being in this more cosmic wheel. And in fact, the look that was so famous like that, I can't point to the screen there, but where her head is down is because she was shaking so much, not because she was trying to, and the director told her, put your head down, and that became the look. So things about her fame almost happened to her, even though her ambition to supply money for her family and to do this work as an actress was very strong. The wild goose is the mystical bird, the Hamsa of Hindu tradition, an undertone of integration at an expansionistic level, spiritual or economic. In the Hindu symbol, man's transcendent soul, this V-shaped flight and seasonal, attuned to planetary rhythms. Thus, it symbolizes this cosmic order. And the celestial aspect of these earthborn birds and the flight perfectly structured, the soul consciousness as visualized by the heaven-oriented mind. So what I saw, she was incredibly intellectual, worked very, very hard. And this soul consciousness can be called transcendent because it has not yet become incarnated. Cosmic order polarizes the all too human reliance on the social concept of law and order. So, which is in the Dane Ridger, or not this, in the Sabian symbols, the law and order of the preceding symbol is like what society does, and the cosmic order, which was what her Sabian symbol was about, was the MC was about this cosmic order. And I see how she fit into the time and how important it was, and what she did on the other sides. She went through that whole McCarthy era too, where she had to she had, and Adlai Stevenson was one of her closest friends. She was very political and involved in the whole world. And she was so deeply felt in her relationship with Humphrey Bogart. And so anyway, I see her whole life as I see it as part of a cosmic order, not just her social order of being such a famous person in Hollywood. She really worked hard. So anyway, and she was in Aries and knew what she wanted from a very early age, trained in every art. She pioneered classy and sexy. She was smart, witty as an actress, and she took lots of sacrifices of the family and school to make it all happen. So her MC was in Aries. She was pushing it forward for the sake of the family and pioneering something, as her mother, as I said, left on a boat from Romania as a Jewish person. So they arrived in complete poverty in New York. So she was also for the family doing that. She broke with tradition. She was 19 when she was chosen in the To Have and Have Not with the biggest star of the time, and he was married at the time. Again, that versus the Sabian symbol before her of the law and order of the society, versus her law was of her heart, and that she was going to do what she came to do, and she couldn't deny what she felt inside herself as this Aries MC. She was always at the right place at the right time, strong, and she was very brave. She made her way, and she pushed herself very hard, as an Aries would, because when she wanted a role, she called every day. She made herself a nuisance. She found out where are they going to be, and she showed up in the lobby of the hotel just by chance. And so she made her own fate. She made her own visibility as an Aries energetic of this MC. She was very smart. She was not conniving or mean, not at all. She was actually very loving. And then I wanted to look at that grand trine of to the MC, where she had in my thing that at the ninth house MC, this grand trine down to the Neptune and North Node in Leo. You see that? The North Node, I don't think, the North Node in Leo there with the with a Neptune with it. So she had that feeding up to her MC, her actress, that Leo energy, the imagination of the Neptune and the North Node, like it was her destiny and her evolutionary place to in the first house of herself, to express herself and to use her imagination and to be other people and to do that. Then in the Jupiter, giving her this sort of blessed in the Sagittarius, she was a truth seeker, and she was a go-getter, and she was very so that fiery thing fed the MC in Aries. So that's how I saw it. Okay, and then I wrote the go-getter force of an Aries woman, feeding and fed by the North Node, her evolutionary path, full of her imagination and dreams, her highest dreams in expression in the first house, feeding and being fed by Jupiter in Sagittarius, two bigger than life proponents in her fifth house of the creative expression, adventure, and she always loved having this sense of adventure. And then she went with Bogey on The African Queen, if you've known that movie, The African Queen with Katharine Hepburn. And that it telling that whole thing that happened, it was very physically challenging, but it was this adventure she did with the love of her life, Humphrey Bogart, and Katharine Hepburn, who was her idol. And I also want to point out that the MC was trine Venus, if we go back to the chart and look and see if that's true. Is it the MC trine Venus? Yes. She would be a unique woman known for her feminine expression. She was sassy, she was sexy, she was, I don't know how to, in the nice way of saying this, she was smart-mouthed. You know, she had these lines, these zinger lines that would be sort of full with energy. She was a magnet to kind and talented men. So I looked at that men who were talented or very kind just fell in love with her. MC is trine, I said this again then, Neptune, Jupiter, and Venus. So that it wasn't just the MC having planets on top of it, but it was the relationship of these planets that fed her MC, is how I saw it. And the MC was also quincunx, or the fated line to Mercury in Virgo in the second house. She knew the details of her scripts. She knew everyone else's lines. So she was very brilliant in being able to have that intellect feed her MC. She communicated and was able to make money and support herself and her mother, who she had a deep, affectionate relationship with her mother all her life. As her protector, the mother protected her. So I see that female going to the MC, that trine as the mother also protecting her all her life. And then when her mother became debilitated, she protected her mother all her mother's life. She got a place for her, and she saw her through her death of her husband. She ended up loving the mother's husband. The father abandoned them, or it was a bad relationship early on. So her own mother was a single mother. Let's see. And then I wrote, and I said that the MC being trine Venus, she knew what she wanted to do. She followed her passion. She knew who she loved. She had great integrity. Her values were very intact, and nobody could take away her values. She kept quiet if she needed to, but she always knew what she believed in. And her mind could receive very much the information as well as she could communicate it, as her mind could receive it. She was very nervous, and it went into her physical body, all these emotions and nerves, but she did it anyway. And I look at that as being that strong Aries. Her MC was also square Pluto, and the Pluto was in Cancer. So she ended up nursing Bogart as he died unexpectedly very early. He had a debilitating disease of cancer, I believe, and she had to care for him, and she wouldn't let anyone else in the room sometimes so she could care for him. She really stood by him as a protector. And that MC square, it would be to me that challenge of a hard, transformative death and rebirth she had to go to in a very personal level. And she had 3 of his children and took care of them intensely until the day he died. I don't have a tea with me, but I've got something in my throat. Sorry.
You can go grab it, Lauren. Why don't you go grab it?
Okay, thank you.
I will show you photos. Yes.
Let me go.
Just while you were away, I was watching some interviews of her, and yeah, she speaks about her mother a lot, as Lauren said. And I thought about this Saturn here on the IC. You see how it's opposite the configurations on the IC, and everything that seems to have happened in the love life of that woman, and the husbands, and having to care for 3 children, and then all the sorts of difficulties. I think this Saturn is involved as well in the story, not just.
I try. I tried to emphasize that MC, but in every relationship to the MC as I saw it. But
Yeah.
the power of transformation, I'm talking about the MC that square Pluto in Cancer.
Oh yeah.
Power of transformation, life and death, and in the Cancer caretaking role. 12th house, she was very deep, very private, to the extreme, in a very difficult but absolutely had to do it type of job. Her values were like she would do whatever she needed to do. I wanted to repeat the Sabian symbol MC right now, that in the Dane Ridger, he had it or the Sabian symbol, Edward Jones, as the individual / mental realm. So she was to be an individual, and the symbol of the triangle of the wild geese, the flight of the geese. And he said it was about her being, that the symbol was about the cosmic order, traditional order. And I'll just actually go to page 1 where I talked about and give it an idealistic reliance upon a mental image of universal / cosmic order. So that was my little presentation. I hope I did something that was valuable, because I didn't do the spread of everything, but I just tried to focus on the MC and how it showed her attention to something. Even though her life was very intense, she felt like she was part of a cosmic order of what was happening in society at this time. Not only how she affected people on the stage as a Broadway star, she won awards as I don't know, whatever you get, the Tony or something like that, as well as the awards for her movie career. But then she wrote this book that is so personal. And when you read it, you just know how genuine she was writing this book. She just told it like it is, but it reflects the bigger picture. It reflects a cosmic order. And even she wasn't born Lauren Bacall, even though I was named after her. She was named Betty Weinstein. I think it was Betty Weinstein Bacall. And spelled differently even. And they told her in Hollywood, oh, that name's no good, we'll give you Lauren. And at that time, Lauren also was both a male name and a female name. Okay, I'm done.
That's very interesting. I didn't know the story of how she got the name, but yeah, she hardly ever calls herself Lauren, isn't it? Yeah.
But no, she does call herself, she was Lauren, but she was born Betty. I forget. Let me look at the exact name.
Yes, it was Betty, yes.
Betty Weinstein Bacall.
Interesting.
Anyway, so
thank you so much. I just wanted to tell the others how similar. Well, I don't know if it's similar, but I see so many sinister aspects between you and this woman. The nodal axis is opposite to yours. And I think this is one of the reasons maybe why you were attracted so much to this. But it's an example personality of almost like where she starts from, that's where you're going, the other way around, something like that. Aquarius and Mars, South Node in Aquarius together with Mars in the 7th. I think that's probably why she was such a naturally smart woman, like in this male sort of way, and prematurely mature, let's say. I mean, I was very impressed by this, like being very young but looking so much more mature. Initially I thought there was something Capricornian going on in the chart, some strong Saturn, and there really is this very strong Saturn here. and also the descendant in Capricorn. And Humphrey Bogart is a Capricorn with lots of planets in Capricorn. So I thought that's interesting, probably. And yeah, and also you are an Aries. She's got this prominent moon on the
I
MC
have
in
a
Aries.
grand trine in fire where
Yeah,
my MC is in Sag, but my sun is in Aries, trying to my moon in Leo, trying to the MC.
yes. And also the Venus in Leo in the first house, which I think was a great part of her personality, and what her beauty, her exemplary beauty, and so on, and talent, and that goes back to a lot of Leo things in your own chart, I think, which is also the similar way of expression, and this many things I see similar. Also the Jewish descendancy.
Yeah, yeah. My
Yeah.
parents, their grandparents came to through Ellis Island,
Mhm.
and so I felt a relationship of how the family just, focuses on the children.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when now, and I see from your talk how the moon and Chiron are so visible with that MC. In a way, it's that heavenly bridge right there, even though they're not conjunct.
Yeah.
I see how her moon was shown, her feelings were very exhibited in the world.
And
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 she was,
also, yeah, I'm sorry.
no, and also her wound of losing, and then also her marriage. She didn't marry Frank Sinatra, but he asked her to marry and she said yes, and then within about whatever it was, she realized, oh, he's all wrong for me, or something else happened, so they didn't actually follow through and get married, but they were friends all their lives, so she knew of what was going on that way.
Hmm. Yeah, I remember she mentioned in one of the interviews that he was a long-time friend of her and Bogart during
Yes,
their life together, and it was more like a natural
yes.
connection there, but didn't work out. But maybe we can put her in the same list as all those other examples of people with moon on the MC, of always something going on around the husband or the partner, the partner, whatever it is. And it's very like the person being prominent through their marriage, let's say, marriage partner somehow as well, not just on their own. And what was finally about her was very interesting to me is that she said in many interviews, I watched maybe 4 or 5, that, well, she said something like, you learn how to adjust your public persona so that you kind of put up a reasonable face out there, and you know how to learn how to behave, but what's underneath the surface is actually a lot more vulnerable and a lot more private. So I thought how much this moon against Saturn is speaking here, and how much more difficult it must have been for this woman underneath the surface than especially the 0 degree Scorpio, which happens to be my sun, got me very, very intrigued in that Saturn. But anyway, okay, I guess we also want to say how much
One
we
more
get.
thing is, after what you said, she used to say she was shaking so much she could barely have a picture taken when she was 17, 18. Her emotions went into her body. And so that's how, in order to stop shaking, she put the head down. Or her fear, and her fear was enormous, but she did it anyway. And it related to what you just said about, I guess, the moon
I always thought of this
or
to
the
be
Saturn.
related. Despite the Saturn, which maybe, I mean, also part of it, but I thought this is so much typical for Cancer ascendant. This Cancer ascendant, you mentioned she was very shy, especially when young, and she says even in the very older, when she was very old, that she still has this anxiety, stage fright, and things like that. And I'm very much, in the belief that something in the 12 uh, planet in the 12 is conditioning the expression of the ascendant. And this Pluto in the 12, with all those aspects, especially with back to the moon and the MC, it must have been heavy on her. And this is probably to do with the father story and the family story and things like that. There must be history behind that. But I thought maybe that because of that Cancer ascendant was why she always reacted this way in the first instance. Yeah, when she
And
had
also
to.
she wasn't allowed to, she kept quiet that she was Jewish because
Oh, you
people
know
would say
that.
to her, but you don't look Jewish. You know, she would be like something she had to hide from Hollywood at that time
Yeah.
because there was so much anti-Semitism.
Oh, I see. But at the same time, I see many actresses, especially the ascendant in Cancer, is coming out as somebody very beautiful, like an Angelina Jolie has this. It's very similar kind of. It's not typical look, not something. And I think Lauren Bacall also had this very unusual cat face kind of look. But she was, having this. Attraction of the Cancer ascendant. I feel like this ascendant in a woman is almost like saying, come and save me, come and help me, protect me, some kind of thing. Or it may develop into a protective role that she adopts later on, as she has, obviously.
Yes.
But yeah, I hope, guys, this was an interesting example for you. Yeah. Shall we move on to the next one? Lauren, thank you so much one more time. I think this was really interesting, at least to me.
Thank you.
Especially the way you presented it. And Jean-Marc, do you want to tell us a few things about the next one?
Okay.
Before you do, you sent me a short clip, which I'll play when I show the chart, so that we can all look at the chart for a few moments. This is Immanuel Kant, and a little bit more back in time, but it's a very good example of Saturn on the MC as a as a chart of a scientist and person of thought and so on. So, and also art, but that was something that you probably mentioned. So, let me just open it and I'll play the clip. So if you don't know exactly what his contribution was or want to remind yourself, it's very short. We can do that while seeing the chart quickly, and then we'll see what Jean-Marc wants to comment on it. So, here we go. Let me see how I can show you both at the same time. Sorry, give me a moment to sort out all those windows here. So here we've got the chart on that side. It's a little small, but I hope you can still see.
Immanuel Kant is a philosopher who tried to...
Don't know what happened.
You can't lose weight as you get older.
Yeah, the annoying
No,
YouTube advertisements. Here we
How
go.
human beings could be good and kind outside of the exaltations and blandishments of traditional religions. He was born in 1724 in the Baltic city of Königsberg, which at that time was part of Prussia and now belongs to Russia, renamed Kaliningrad. Kant's parents were very modest. His father was a saddle maker. Kant never had much money. The fact he dealt with cheerfully by living very modestly. It wasn't until he was in his 50s that he became a fully salaried professor and attained a moderate degree of prosperity. His family were deeply religious and very strict. Later in life, Kant did not have any conventional religious beliefs, but he was acutely aware of just how much religion contributed to his parents' ability to cope with all the hardships of their existence, and how useful religion could be in fostering social cohesion and community. Kant was physically very slight, frail, and anything but good-looking, yet he was very sociable, and some of his colleagues used to criticize him for going to too many parties. When eventually he was able to entertain, he had rules about conversation at his table. At the start of a dinner party, he decreed that people should swap stories about what had been happening recently. Then there should be a major phase of reflective discourse, in which those present attempted to clarify an important topic. And finally, there should be a closing period of hilarity, so that everyone left in a good mood. He died in 1804, in his 80th year, in Königsberg, having rarely felt the need to spend any time outside the city in which he was born. Kant was writing at a highly interesting period in history we now know as the Enlightenment. In an essay called What is Enlightenment, published in 1784, Kant proposed that the identifying feature of his age was its growing secularism. Intellectually, Kant welcomed the declining belief in Christianity, but in a practical sense, he was also alarmed by it. He was a pessimist about human character and believed that we are by nature intensely prone to corruption. It was this awareness that led him to formulate what would be his life's project, the desire to replace religious authority with the authority of reason, that is, human intelligence. When it came to religion, Kant summed up his views in a book entitled Religion Within the Bounds of Reason Alone. Here he argued that although historical religions had all been wrong in the content of what they believed, they had latched onto a great need to promote ethical behavior, a need which still remained. It was in this context that Kant came up with the idea, which he is perhaps still most famous, what he called categorical imperative. This strange-sounding term first appeared in a horrendously named work, groundwork of the metaphysics of morals. The categorical imperative states, act only according to that maxim by which you can at the same time will that it should become a universal law. What did Kant mean by this? This was only a very formal restatement of an idea that's been around for a long time, something we meet with in all the main religions. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Kant was offering a handy way of testing the morality of an action by imagining how it would be if it were generally practiced and you were the victim of it. It might be tempting to filch a few pads of paper from the stationery cupboard at work. It seems like a small thing, but if everyone did this, the cupboard and society at large would need a lot of guards. Similarly, if you have an affair and keep it quiet from your partner, you might feel that's okay. But the categorical imperative comes down against this, because you would then have to embrace the idea that it would be equally okay for your partner to have affairs and not tell you. The categorical imperative is designed to shift our perspective, to get us to see our own behavior in less immediately personal terms, and thereby recognize some of its limitations. Kant went on to argue that the core idea of the categorical imperative could be stated in another way. Act so as to treat people always as ends in themselves, never as mere means. This was intended as a replacement for the Christian injunction for universal love, the command to love one's neighbor. To treat a person as an end, for Kant meant keeping in view that they had a life of their own in which they were seeking happiness and fulfillment and deserved justice and fair treatment. The categorical imperative, Kant argued, is the voice of our own rational selves. It's what we all truly believe when we're thinking sensibly. It's the rule our own intelligence gives us. Kant extended his thinking about the categorical imperative into the political sphere. He believed that the central duty of government is to ensure liberty, but he sensed there was something terribly wrong with the ordinary definition of freedom or liberty. It should not be thought of in libertarian terms as the ability to do just whatever we want. We are free only when we act in accordance with our own best natures, and we are slaves whenever we are under the rule of our own passions or those of others. As Kant put it, a free will and a will under moral laws are one and the same. So freedom isn't an absence of government. A free society isn't one that allows people more and more opportunity to do whatever they happen to fancy. It's one that helps everyone become more reasonable. The good state represents the rational element in us all. It rules according to a universally valid will under which everyone can be free. So government, ideally, is the externalized, institutionalized version of the best parts of ourselves. It might be a bit surprising at first to discover that in 1793, Kant published a major work on beauty and art, The Critique of Judgment. It might seem like a bit of a sideline for a thinker otherwise concerned with politics and ethics, but Kant held that his ideas about art and beauty were the cornerstones of his entire philosophy. As we've been seeing, Kant thought that life involved a constant struggle between our better selves and our passions, between duty and pleasure. Beauty, Kant especially liked roses, vines, apple trees, and birds, delights us in a very special and important way. It's a reminder of and goad to our better selves. Unlike so much else in our lives, our love of beauty is, in Kant's word, disinterested. It takes us out of our narrow, selfish concerns, but in a charming, delightful way, without being stern or demanding. The beauty of nature is a continual, quiet, and insistent reminder of our common universal being. A pretty flower is just as attractive to the tired farm worker as to the prince. The graceful flight of a swallow is as lovely to a child as to the most learned professor. For Kant, the role of art is to embody the most important ethical ideas. It's a natural extension of philosophy. Kant held that we needed to have art continually before us so as to benefit from vivid illustrations and memorable symbols of good behavior, and thereby keep the wayward parts of ourselves in check. Kant's books were dense, abstract, and highly intellectual, but in them he sketched a very important project that remains crucial to this day. He wanted to understand how the better, more reasonable parts of our natures would be strengthened so as to reliably win out over our inbuilt weaknesses and selfishness. As Kant saw it, he was engaged in the task of developing a secular, rational version of what religions have, very imperfectly, always attempted to do, help us to be good.
Right. So,
Yes.
I will just get rid of those windows quickly. Yeah, Jean-Marc,
Yeah.
what brought your attention to this guy in particular?
But can you make the chart?
Yes, I'm just trying, sorry, while we speak.
Yeah, but during the time you managed to find the chart here, no, it's Lorraine Bacal. But well, it's just one of these little moments where you feel pleased with yourself that I had with Kant, because I was reading a book of philosophy and I was not reading Kant. In my whole life, I read only one page by Kant to know how difficult it was, and I didn't go further. But I was reading, history of philosophy, three or four pages about many different philosophers, and the guy was explaining this categorical imperative, and the way he was explaining the categorical imperative, only these words, and it would mean, even, for example, imagine a case of this categorical imperative where you are a prisoner by your enemies, and your enemies are torturing you for you to tell where your friends are hidden. And even in this case, you should not lie, because it's bad. So whether you resist to torture and you don't speak, but if you speak, you shouldn't lie, and you should tell the truth. So it's taking this word categorical very far. And so I was reading that in the book, and I was thinking, wow, that's pretty much like Saturn. And I didn't know Kant's chart, so I went Google Astrology, and I see Saturn bang on the MC, and well, so that was this. So it remains in my mind as one of these examples when you, because astrology is very pleasing when we are confronted with reality and think, oh, that could be like this planet, and then we find confirmation in the chart rather than the other way around. So that's the first. I'm not going to do a long explanation. And if you check the School of Life on YouTube, it's really great. You have plenty of 8-minute videos about philosophers or other people, and if you have the chart at the same time, it's really a great way to connect placements and charts. What is also very noticeable when you listen to the video, as how important he found beauty and art, and that it was actually and Venus, ruler of his Taurus ascendant, makes an exact quincunx to Saturn. So it's integral. So Saturn is the most obvious energy as a categorical imperative, which is renowned for, but Venus is not far behind and was underlying it all the time. I think, there is also something interesting to notice. At that time, Uranus had not been discovered yet. He talks a lot about freedom. He was one of the philosophers of the Enlightenment, which prepared the ideas which laid the ground for the French revolutions, and the American Revolution were also influenced by the enlightened philosopher. And we can see that Uranus is also prominent, conjunct the DEC, opposed the Sun. So there is a mixture of Saturn, Uranus as well. and I'm saying that as you are all very skilled, I will leave you the pleasure possibly to see other things and not say everything.
What do you think about everyone? What do you think about Mars opposite Saturn here? And yeah, I saw some in the video, so many things that refer to Saturn, but like Mars is hidden and wants to express and achieve and persevere as well, and it's giving a lot of strength, but also a bit shy. You know. Wait, actually, I'm sorry, I just would forget. This Neptune also, maybe it wasn't discovered too, but that's part of the first house also, and the North Node. And isn't it the connection with beauty and the arts, both Neptune and Venus, maybe? And if we look at this aspect that Neptune is doing, it also makes some sense, I guess. But yeah, sorry, who did I interrupt a minute ago? Lauren, was it you?
I was just going to say that I look at Mars as the personal planet of that doer. He was trying to nurture by being in the Mars in Cancer. It's a force for nurturing, and what that little video showed us how he wanted to have people nurture each other and his own feelings, not only towards beauty, but also his feelings do unto others as you would have them do unto you. You know, that whole thing. And then the Saturn on the MC being that place of hard work that he made his whole life about making a difference through hard work. He didn't become a professor until he was like 50. He didn't care. He was going to keep working. And in the end, his hard work also speaks for itself there with that Saturn there. And that Saturn is in the sign of Capricorn, step by step, hard work. So I look at the Mars is that he was working hard because he had a personal feeling towards nurturing.
Yes, very much so. And this aggression that he was like, this exactly what you mentioned, to do to others as you want to. You know, he was like this idea of how do we deal with our worst aggressive urges as a society, and how do we temper them, which may have been dealing with his own aggressive urges underneath the surface and trying to analyze them and then transfer to the Saturn a societal logic. And actually, in this chart, both Saturn and Jupiter are culminating. No, both of them, even though Saturn is very prominent. And these are the society planets. So this is obviously somebody that will be urged to, as far as his public participation is concerned, to change the rules and regulations and norms of how we live together and how we organize our social life. And that's the main contribution. By the way, Jean-Marc, you've got in your chart Saturn in Capricorn.
Yes.
On the descendant, exactly. So on another angle. So I thought here again we've got something in common. It's always like not exactly in common, but like
maybe a connection.
there is. I think that's pretty significant.
Too. I also wanted to just say that since the 12th house, which is the private house, is where his sun and the whole stellium is.
It's a balsamic moon.
When you had said in your first presentation, Marilena, that the work speaks for itself, when a Saturn is on the MC, this is an example. The Saturn's on his work has remained this 300 years beyond his birth, and his personal life, he kept that sort of private. It was the fuel. It was the fuel, but it was a quiet 12th house fuel.
Yeah, isn't it so typical with Saturn to be to have a sacrifice, like for the work, to sacrifice personal life for the work? And also, he's a typical example of a late bloomer, like the video said that he was only, and you mentioned, Lauren, he was only getting results like what was it? Became a paid professor or something like that
Yeah, but
after the 50s.
he was so involved in the. I also connect the stellium in the 12th house plus Neptune on the north node and the first house with some of his ideas about. He was so metaphysical. You know, he talks about the. I don't remember the exact words, but you know, there is a world of phenomenons, which is the one we can grasp through our senses, and he's a Taurus rising, and he was saying he was also he loves a good life and partying, but at the same time he talked about the noumenal world, and it's so 12th house, this noumenal world, which is the world that is beyond what we can grasp with our senses, and which is beyond everything that we can grasp, and it feels very 12 and Neptune.
Seems like the whole chart is very Neptunian now that I look at it, the way you said. Because
as well.
it's like, yeah, Neptune is extremely prominent in the first house with the North Node, all those planets in the 12th.
Yeah,
and
Mars,
Jupiter.
and
Yeah.
the Mars moon. He said his parents were very strict. He was. The video goes very quickly, but he probably has suffered being brought up by very Puritan and very religious and very Christian people. We don't do this and we don't say that. And
did you have something like that going on in your case, or not that extreme, but like religion was part of the family life when you were young?
me?
Yeah.
Yes, certainly.
Yes. And do you also have moon Mars aspect? Do I remember well? The moon is connected with Mars. No.
No, not directly.
Oh no, not directly. Was it?
I've got Mars in Scorpio.
Trying
the rising in Cancer. If you take it that way.
Yes, I remembered something about a potentially explosive Mars, but very private at the same time. I was like, something is triggering the Mars, the emotions are triggering the Mars in a way that it should. I mean, I imagine this Immanuel Kant as somebody that had to work with his own Mars, and maybe the Mars was causing trouble, but not in a very visible way, more behind the scenes.
I also want to point out just that how this choice that you made, Jean-Marc, is so relevant to me today, because in the United States, there's so much about freedom.
Yes.
You know, wearing a mask, not wearing a mask, and are you doing it for the good of everyone? And these kinds of principles where people are, you know, rioting or destroying property would be like going too far as yes, you're free, but you're not going to. Why are you making other people's lives? Would you want that done unto you? And I so find that this person and his philosophy, I'm so glad you brought it back to my attention, because I think his basic principles are so important, and they are the metaphysical principles.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yes. One thing that I also wanted to mention is this Pluto in Virgo. I know also Pluto wasn't discovered at the time, but that was the sign of the generation that bore this person. And when we go back forward in time, next time we find Pluto in Virgo is in the 60s. Mm-hmm. And maybe a lot of the themes that society was struggling through, and those things that you mentioned, Lauren, were coming back as a team in the 60s. So we maybe, and some of them are actually recurring now as we speak, even though it's like a second wave of that team that started there, you know, with the hippie generation, with the first attempts to kind of design a new kind of communal life and so on. But I see this connection that maybe his writings are relevant to today very much. Mm-hmm. Anything else, or would you like to move forward?
No, we can move
forward.
Any
other comments? We can find more if we go even deeper,
Oh,
but there
yeah.
is no point maybe. Yeah, this is like one of those unique cases. There was a girl that was joining those meetings in the beginning when I first started. So she's young, she's like my age, but she has the same Saturn in Capricorn on the 10th house cusp. So that's like a triple Capricorn thing. That's pretty unique, isn't it? Not just Capricorn, not just Saturn, but like even on the cusp of the 10th house. So that's, I think, very interesting to notice as well.
One thing I would just say too that really struck me is in that little video that that his work, somehow his hard work, somehow his thoughts were instigate with the French Revolution and the American Revolution, that they were utilized in the breaking up and creating new.
Yeah, it was part of the century of the Enlightenment. I don't know to what extent they were inspired by Kant, but it was part of the
wave.
Of the wave of the.
Well, the fact that most of us have heard his name, even if we didn't know what he stood for.
Yeah. He epitomized the most difficult to read, when you just can't understand. He was a rationalist. I think he was he was not an empiricist. He was a rationalist, if I remember well. So he was thinking that it's possible to find out truth only by the use of reason.
The code to reason.
Yeah.
Which could be said to be the code to Saturn in a way.
But
by that means, do you think that we are prone to somehow admire or cherish the qualities of something we've got on the MC ourselves? Kind of over-exaggerated. Most of people with Saturn on the MC, are they usually more pessimistic? Like we said in the video, it was said that he was quite pessimistic about human nature. I've got a few people I know in my life that have Saturn on the MC, and they are quite pessimistic and kind of it's always gloom and doom for the future. Future is never holding anything good. It's all like the past was better. Yeah, that's very Saturnian as well.
It's very Saturnian. Yeah, I feel like that. I'm not Saturn on the MC, but in Capricorn DC.
Yeah, you've got a prominent Saturn as well.
I have a tendency. I remember one of these little discussions on Facebook about the MC, and I was talking with a young woman who hated having a Capricorn MC, because she absolutely hated it, because she believed that because she had the MC in Capricorn, she said, I am just not like the textbooks, because she hated authority. She was a kind of hippie style and cool and loving to party, and she really didn't want to be a Capricorn. So there was an emotional issue against Capricorn. And I say, yeah, okay, but it's not your ascendant, it's your MC. What do you do as a job? and actually, as a job, young as she was, I don't remember the name of the job, but she was working for a pharmaceutical company. She was in charge of leading a team. She had responsibilities with the medicines, which were quite important. And I was pointing out that it was a little bit Capricorn, all that. No. She didn't want to admit she had nothing Capricorn. She was a hippie, and she didn't. And yes, she was in charge of a team, but she was talking kindly to them. But
maybe there was something else going on, that she was somehow ambitious to participate in the system the way the system is.
Yeah, and when I was pointing out that actually not everyone has a job with stable and responsibilities and where you have to be very conscientious, but she was, no, but that's what you've got to do. That was so normal that it was not valued. But it was funny, because all her answers were really the themes of Capricorn, but it made me understand that the social role of the MC, what we do, is how it's different from the ascendant, because you can have responsibilities and be serious about your job and so on, and still at the level of your ascendant look like a hippie or hate giving or receiving orders.
Could you not also read it as being a fear of being in the limelight?
Could be, yes. Why not? Yeah, of course. We know how shy Capricorn can be in terms of, well, it's very strange shyness, because it's not like Cancer, the opposite. Capricorn is reserved but ambitious.
Yeah.
So it wants to be out there, but it doesn't need to make a big splash kind of thing. Well, Cancer is really more authentically private. That's the way I see it. But I think you're very right.
But could you not just say up until the first Saturn return, it's more fearful to be, and then once you get past your first Saturn return, you know what it's all about, and then you can actually use it?
I guess it all depends how Saturn is positioned also in the chart.
Yeah, also, yeah, it makes sense.
And I have this curious case of MC on the first degree of Aquarius, and with the different minutes, different options of the exact minutes of birth. There was I went to see an astrologer 5 years ago. That's my only real consultation I did. And he calculated my chart, I think with Placidus, with time, which was not exactly right at the time. And he said, look, it's between Capricorn and Aquarius. But he asked me a couple of questions. What do you do? What do you want to do? And things like that. And he said, it's definitely not Capricorn. It's definitely Aquarius. So he was very sure about that, just by the means of 2-minute conversation. And I'm also very sure. And I see this big difference between Capricorn and Aquarius MC, even though I've got no planets there. That Capricorn is very much interested in, willing to take part in its ambition, whatever it is, to take part in the existing order of things. And to, like, I think Kant he worked with what was already there. He worked with the state of society, the way it was, and wanted to, influence that. And he wanted to kind of assert his personality within that system. While Aquarius is very much of a willing to look in different directions. Like if I had an MC in Capricorn, I believe I was going to seek standard ways of, let's say, practicing astrology, looking around and see what the best people now that are considered to be the best for the moment are doing, and try to almost like imitate or do something like this. Well, Aquarius is very much like, oh, I don't care about all this. It's more individualistic in its expressions. Yeah.
I wanted to add one more point before we leave the chart about the practical aspect of the mind and the practical aspect of Saturn, and having the Saturn in Capricorn, having a strong, the Pluto in the, then that would be it. That I was looking at the Taurus, the strong Taurus ascendant, and so forth, the sun, and that this would give him taking these ideas that came about of his work that he wanted to do for society, that rationale, the mind, in the sense of but also make it very practical, make it very real, make it very, and so his idealistic aspect of, let's say, just even do unto others as you would have them do unto you, the primary thing he came forward, he was trying to make it look, because then all of us will rise up. And it was very it wasn't because we love each other, it was because the society would function better. We'd be a better world.
It's quite why.
And so that level, I just want to talk about the earth element. Although he had fire, air, earth, and water pretty nicely distributed in his chart, the earth he wanted a practical ideas that would be very practical for a society, so everybody could be happier, which is kind of the higher Aquarian or metaphysical.
Mm-hmm. Well, Saturn is the one that places order in society, isn't it? It's all the order sort of institutions out there.
Yeah.
And you're very right about this because he was having this task, so North Node in Earth. Yeah, so he had to make it practical. And the reason, I mean, the fact that he managed to do that is a big achievement considering the North Node is not easy usually, isn't it? In that respect, Saturn helped the North Node.
Yeah.
Or the other way around. I'm not sure. Are they in aspect? They are not in aspect? No. No. But yeah, but still kind of the earthly theme of practicality and of application in practice of the ideas.
Yes, that's what I'm trying to say.
Yes. Yes. Okay, well, interesting example, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Moving on, shall we? Dwayne, would you
Okay.
like me to open the chart? Or would you like to share your screen?
I think share the screen would be good.
Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. You cannot share screen. Start screen share while the other participant.
Let me stop mine. Yes, of course. Now you go.
So I. Where are you seeing?
Yes?
There. You're seeing exploring natal astrology,
Yes?
the planet most exalted. That's how I framed it as we came out of last week. So that was kind of the way I entered my research journey, which was really quite fulfilling. I've got a background in study of the Mesoamerican cosmology, and I was with the notion of the space-based house system. It really resonates with what the Maya and other Mesoamerican cosmologies. It resonated with the way that they deal with their cosmology. They make it personal to the person, to the individual, in a way that encourages the direct experience of the sky and what that brings to us. And so this quote popped up, and I don't know about you guys, but I have trouble. I lose my cursor when I'm sharing here, and I
have it. The cursor seems to be working on my side.
Yeah, on mine it's disappeared, and I can't get out of the way. The stuff.
The way I can help with that?
Yeah.
Oops. Now it's moving.
Yeah, but I wanted it to.
I wanted to point something in the quotes, in the previous quotes. Okay, no problem.
Okay. Now it's going backwards. How do I?
You can try to use the little arrows on your keyboard. You know, the left and right arrow to slide forward and back. Yeah, perfect.
Okay, as before, would you please read for me, because I can't get a hold of this.
Yes. So that's from Maya Cosmogenesis. Is that right?
Yes.
By J.M. Jenkins.
John Major Jenkins.
Yeah. And the quote is, centering the village, centering the body, centering the sky, in effect, centering the cosmos on all levels, was a primary concern of Mesoamerican society, affecting the health and balance each region's rural and social-political existence. The astronomical component of this endeavor, finding the center of the sky, was the province of the calendar, priests and skywatchers. Among the Kinch Maya, is that right?
Kinche Maya.
Kinche Maya. These astronomer priests are called, how are they called? Nick Wakil? No, I'm not sure how to pronounce that, but that means those who look into the center.
And that would include all of us as astrologers. We're looking into the center, are we not? I'm sorry to burden you with the speaking, but
No, it's my pleasure.
oh, great.
For modern individuals, the important thing is that we should actually become true individuals out of the sea of the collective unconscious, emerged from the mother. What matters most is our experience as individual persons to be, if not as fully individualized, integrated selves. What matters most is the process of focusing whereby the cosmic, unformed ocean of solar zodiacal energy is brought to the clear focus of conscious individualized existence and used accordingly. Shall I move on?
Yeah.
The process of focusing and the great act of spirit, which is the incarnation, in inverted commas, can hardly be understood or assisted by astrologers unless astrological judgment is also brought to a focus by the study of the precise natal chart with an exact ascendant and wheel of houses. The ascendant is not merely a line cutting across a sign of the zodiac, as shown in the typical European-style chart. It is the beginning of the field of conscious individual existence. The natal horizon, from ascendant to descendant, is the most basic factor in the conscious personality. That's a quote by Dane Woodyer. In the natal houses, that's the article, by the way, from the article, isn't it, Dwayne? That's
Yeah.
on. I posted that article recently, but I will repost it after today. It's in Codia, where it's a short article where Woodyer explains the difference between the European style, the way of showing the chart, and the American style, and how the American one is a bit more, say, personalized because of this, not focus on the zodiac, but focus on the space-based division of the houses. Anyway, sorry to interrupt here, but I think
No,
that's
that's
important.
please continue. Yeah.
Okay,
Okay. There's more.
there's more. Okay, so here we've got only a chart in which the center is occupied by the person living on the Earth's surface and the horizon and meridian are exactly perpendicular can be considered a mandala for the individual to use as a form of guidance in the process of self-holing and of conscious emergence from the mass vibrations of human nature. The typical European continental chart, which is now finding a number of devotees in the US, so that's the one you're showing here, isn't it? That's on Astro Team, the one that they're showing us.
Yeah.
So that typical European chart, now finding a number of devotees in the US, is not a mandala for the purpose of individual integration and self-actualization, because its structural pattern does not refer to the direct visual relationship of the individual to his personal universe. It may, but does not always, use a horizontal line to represent the ascendant-descendant axis. Only in relatively infrequent instances is the meridian line linking the midheaven and the IC perpendicular to the horizon. It is a distorted mandala which must equally deviate an intuitive perception of the whole person-centered pattern. What such a zodiacally circumscribed chart form does is to emphasize collective rather than individual factors. I guess I could make a comment here that it's because the zodiac is the collective, and this is more based on the zodiac. It gives them a permanent, unchangeable, absolutely fundamental value and power. It emphasizes the power of the environment and of human nature over the person attempting to actualize to the full his birth potential. Yeah, so that was another quote from Woodyer.
Yeah. Yeah, it just seemed important to me to emphasize this aspect of our inquiry because it really does, it's a philosophical basis that we don't necessarily always check in with when we're using the various house systems. But I think Rudyard makes it very clear what his stand is.
Yeah, like this is even less. Yep.
I'm sorry, what was that, John?
Yeah, if you turn like that, it's even less a mandala with a vertical going around.
I think we didn't quite hear you, Jean-Marc.
Yeah, I was just joking because the mandala was going, the imperfect mandala was.
Ah, yes, yes. I like the visual effects that Dwayne is using in his presentation. They're always very Aquarian, I think.
Well, and I do like to play.
Yeah, why not?
Right on. So, you know, as I've indicated before, it's only in the last couple of years that I've associated Rudyard with Chiron, and now to explore his Chiron being up there at the midheaven, it really feels right, and he, to me, represents a real embodiment of the Chiron archetype. I mean, he was a living, breathing, chirotic master, in my opinion, and I feel very fortunate to have, you know, got on his trail early on back in the 70s. And I think it was this particular image that alerted me to that Chiron, and even though it's portrayed in a chart form that Rudyard wouldn't necessarily embrace, it you know, I think it's like he left that world behind, you know, coming to America. He left the whole European worldview kind of behind and pioneered a whole new realm of astrology, which he opened the door, you know, and these are just samples of his books. There were thousands of articles, and the books. Whoops, sorry. The books that he that we see across the bottom are these are the philosophical. This is the philosophical Rudyard, developing a foundation of understanding as to why we would want to develop a person-centered astrology, a humanistic astrology, a transpersonal astrology. And if you've never read any of his philosophical works, I highly recommend The Planetarization of Consciousness as a great start. It really lays his philosophical basis out in a very profound way. So through this exploration of the most exalted planet, I unexpectedly came onto the work of artist Geoffroy Boschart. Now, I don't know if you people are aware of his work or not, but it's been.
May I ask a question and interrupt you? Because I don't understand that Chiron is considered the most exalted planet. Why do you say that?
Well, my use of the term "most exalted planet" corresponds to the notion of, you know, how did you phrase it again, Redlina?
Well, the one that's highest in the sky at the moment of birth, and doesn't have to be exactly conjunct the MC, but it's something that's like higher up on the side over the horizon. It is, that's what I said earlier.
Oh, so you're not saying that of all the planets, Chiron is the most exalted. That's not what you were saying?
Oh, it is, isn't it?
Well, exalted in the sense of highest in the sky, highest in the sky of the birth chart.
Got it. Thank you.
Great.
That was in the previous chart, the Rudyard chart. Yeah?
Yes.
This one is different.
And when we go to Boss chart, we see Mercury in that 9th house, Mercury in Sag. And a quote here, which I can read. Jofra Boss chart was a Dutch painter who described his own works as surrealism based on studies of psychology, religion, the Bible, astrology, antiquity, magic, witchcraft, mythology, and occultism. That's quite a lineup. He did found a group called the Meta-Realist group of painters who, really went in depth into all of these studies, and they met regularly. They shared knowledge, and he was a very a committed researcher, and developed his skills to an unbelievable degree, which, for those who are not familiar with his work, we'll see now. So again, Radlina, please.
Yes, so he had Mercury in the 4th degree of Sagittarius, right? I'm sorry, when I just need to move the windows again because they're on my way. Right. So the Sabian symbol, 2 men playing chess without Mercury, right? Keynote the transcendent ritualization of conflict. Essential to social cultural living is the transmutation of man's natural aggressiveness under most conditions of existence. Many rituals, sports, and games have no other basic aim. In chess, the complex types of energies, which in their togetherness constitute a human person, are symbolized by 6 kinds of pieces: king, queen, bishops, knights, rooks, and pawns. The struggle between light and darkness, the yang and yin forces, is ritualized, ending in most cases with the checkmating of the king, the ego, the conscious self. In a dualistic world, such a contest between polarized forces is omnipresent. The chess game trains men to be more objective, more careful, more aware of whole situations, and less impulsive and intent upon side issues. This 3rd stage symbol deals with conflict, but at the level of group culture and psychological symbolization. It brings to the objective consciousness the basic realities in impersonal interplay.
Thank you. Now, out of all of that, I just want to stress that the struggle between the dark and the light, the yin and the yang, this was definitely an underlying theme in all of Boschart's work. And my right there, okay, here we go. Now, it was fun to realize that Rudyard's book, The Lunation Cycle, was released in 1967 in the Netherlands, and again later in 71 by Shambhala Publishers in the US. And his book, Astrological Signs, I think that was the Pulse of Life, is that the subtitle, released in 1971. And both of these, and to my way of seeing, are have a natural grounding in the Chinese worldview associated with the I Ching. Well, Boschart, I'm imagining that he absorbed both of these books because his paintings so much indicate that. And why am I not advanced?
Is there a proof of that Boschart read Rudyard or something like this?
I have no, I'm very interested in researching that more, but no, I have no proof. It's just what presented itself to me, and the way it came in, it was just, it just seemed natural that, because it was the Netherlands that the Lunation Cycle was released initially, and the timing was so close.
And we
I
can
mean, that's kind of a side issue, I suppose, but that's the way it, as I say, that's the way my research presented it. So,
And do you know what years Bossart created his zodiac series, this series of paintings about the zodiac?
Yes, well, I'm trying to advance to the next slide here, and oh, here we go. And I'll definitely be getting into that. So 1971,
Sorry.
72, and this painting, 1973. There's the full-on image, Unio Mystica, so mystical union. So this gives you a sense of the imagination of this fellow and of the technical expertise. On the lower left-hand corner, I believe that's an indication. Mercury. Yeah. So this is this kind of Bush chart, you know, pointing out into the great beyond, this incredible cosmological vision.
And Venus on the other side.
Ah, right on.
Yes, I noticed that right away too.
And right in the very center, of course, the yin yang and an 8-spoked wheel.
Aha.
Which is very reminiscent again of you know, the lunation cycle and the 8-spoked wheel. So, Radlina, please.
Yes, the Hermetic Jofra, I heard somebody pronounce his name Jofra, I'm not sure. When I received the commission to paint posters of the 12 astrological signs from, I'm not sure what that is, Kirk or something like that, production in 1973, I knew that it would be pointless to add yet more examples to the many hundreds of representations that already existed. Therefore, I decided to elevate as many sides of the signs as possible to a brief meditation and contemplation of the principal figure who becomes the main point of concentration. The many different symbols related to a certain sign, gathered together into a harmonious composition, would give each painting more depth. They would offer the observer more possibilities for his own free associations.
Thank you. So there it is, the full 12 panels of his Zodiac series, which came out in 1975. So lots of fuel for one's imagination.
Do you think that William Blake was influenced by him?
The other way around, rather.
Yeah, Buster, we're talking the 1970s. Blake goes, when was he? He was much, much earlier.
Yeah.
But along the same, you know, the same kind of esoteric tradition of bringing form to cosmic principles, you know, portraying them in a way that people can understand them. Rudyard the Aries, according to Bosch chart. Again, the interplay, the yin yang, black white, male female, sun moon.
The chessboard.
Yes, chessboard.
Yeah. And enduring.
Isis and and Toth. Hathor and Toth.
So the midheaven Sabian symbol analysis.
And just before you start, you know, we've noted that when we have a personal connection to the chart, or our chart and their chart resonate in a certain way, it adds impetus to the exploration. Well, that was certainly the case for me, because my asteroid Vesta is at Sagittarius 5. So I look at that into this as a way of me finding out more about what it is to have that particular placement.
That's very interesting, because my progress sun is right there at the moment.
Ah,
Great. Yeah, I think so.
wonderful.
Okay. An old owl sits alone on the branch of a large tree, is the symbol. Keynote: a poised and wise approach to existence based on a clear perception of unconscious factors and their operation. The owl has always been a symbol of wisdom, and its hooting call has evoked a rise to mysterious and hidden elements in life. The owl functions lucidly in the night aspect of existence. His eyes see what men normally fail to perceive. He presents that consciousness which is active where the processes of life normally escape the attention of the personal ego and its intellect. This is the last of the 5 symbols in the 49 sequence. It suggests the possibility of developing a wisdom beyond tragedy, a peace and poise beyond conflict. One might speak here of translucidity.
Thank you. That portrait just, to me, just speaks loudly of what the words have to say about this particular degree. Now the Hermes Trismegistus,
Mhm.
I always associate with the kind of the central image there, the caduceus. And I mean, this is just, to me, this is just such a profound representation of all of the metaphysical principles that get consolidated into that presence, the presence of Hermes.
And the Hermes that you said, Trista, what I don't see the words on the thing, so I won't say it. But it's also the names for Thoth when he wrote his the Book of Thoth.
So Thoth, Thoth.
That's right.
Yeah.
They called it the 3 names of him.
Yeah.
The same person is that.
But isn't that Hermes the psychopomp in this picture? Because of the hell underneath, the underworld. Hermes the psychopomp is the one that's the messenger between the underworld, the only one allowed by Pluto, to the underworld, that transports the souls down and up and so on. So because of that, isn't that hell that he's portraying here underneath? And
kind of looks that way, doesn't it? Yeah.
We've got, the cards, the tarot card Judgment, and how we've got these, people rising from the dead, from the coffins, and then there is this person with a pipe summoning them up, and some connect that to Mercury as Mercury the psychopomp, Hermes the psychopomp.
Oh.
Maybe that's that here. I don't know.
Where I got my information was reading the Emerald Tablets, if you've ever heard of that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But yes, it deals with things like what you just said. But yeah.
It's probably
Beautiful.
hell because you have a whole range of skulls. The border of the, above the people, the border you see, it's all skulls.
Yep, it looks like hell.
and there is a laughing skeleton on the left.
Yep.
There's a bit of Bosch inspiration.
Yes. I've never seen his work. It's beautiful.
Do you remember a few weeks ago when we did Virgo? When I was having my presentation, there was the image of Virgo from the Zodiac series there.
Okay.
And
sorry, I didn't
no,
relate.
You're not supposed to remember. It's so many images. But I also used it recently on the seminar for Sagittarius and Gemini that I did, the webinar. Also, his images of those signs, they're great. They're just nothing
Beautiful.
better I was able to find on the internet. So, yeah.
Beautiful.
And in the background there, left and right, we have sun and moon.
Mm-hmm.
Once again, that fundamental polarity. Shall we push on?
Of course, yeah.
Another one titled Hermes. So.
This is now the one connecting to the upper, there is this two faces of Mercury, one the connection with the underworld and one the connection with the heavens. So here he is doing the opposite.
I love it.
They're just so rich, aren't they? And the technical requirement on his part, I mean, this is mastery. This is a world master. The little bit I've learned about his biography, he and his wife at one point in the 70s there lived in a little wee cabin, and in order for him to get the bigger perspective on his work, he had to step out the door and look in. I mean, to imagine paintings like this coming to life in a little wee cabin in the woods somewhere, I don't know, the Netherlands or France or whatever. It's just mind-blowing. I mean, the dedication is just unbelievable. And we're only seeing the very tip of the iceberg. He was very, very productive over many years.
So we're looking at the Mercury on the MC, correct?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And therefore, all these images that are Mercurian as well.
Very much so. And of course, his interests or his explorations, moved on to different realms over the course of his career. And this is where he starts to get into, I don't know how to describe it.
Where was Neptune in the chart? I wonder. We can see later. Don't worry.
Yeah. There's at least one gallery that displays his work online, and it's available through this link. I don't propose that we watch there's a couple of videos there, one of which I haven't seen yet, which is kind of a biography. And I'll definitely be exploring more of his work. I just find it very informative to my quest. So that's about it for the sharing.
Excellent.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Great examples that way. Especially, I expected Rudyard, but I didn't expect Jofra. Great. I also found him very recently. It was in that school of psychological astrology that I was doing a course. One of the tutors there was making a presentation on Virgo Pisces polarity, and she was using the two images from the zodiac series, and she was saying, "Oh, that painter is very interesting," and that's how I checked him later on. Anyway,
And he wrote a book of his contemplations on each sign of the zodiac as well.
oh, did you?
Yeah, it's I don't know if it's available in English or not, but I'd like to get a hold of it.
We can look for it. Yes.
Yeah.
So he was also interested in astrology, not just casually like that.
Yeah, one of those many interests that got integrated into a really powerful worldview, very
And a
comprehensive.
marvelous painter. A master painter. Along the Dutch lines.
Right.
Of excellence, like, the Rembrandt, but I saw someone mention Hieronymus Bosch. I don't, as well, he had that kind of flavor. He just integrated a great deal of things. Very interesting. I'm going to be looking at him. I thank you for introducing him to my world. That and Kant, and I already knew about Dane Rudger, but there's always more to learn.
Yeah, I think Kant would have been quite happy with Bosch chart.
Yes, that's a good point, actually. He would have liked him.
Now, I'm aware that last week when we were deciding on the title or the research vector for this week, that Shinja indicated quite excitedly that she had a planet on the MC, and I'm just wondering if we could draw her into the conversation.
How are you today, Shinja? Are you listening?
Sorry guys.
Yeah, we can see you now.
Mute. We can see my chart. I've always been very interested in my Pluto, which is at the top of my chart. And I think I have a very Plutonian chart. It's always been kind of like a big player. And in almost trying to understand every aspect, I somehow connect everything to Pluto. I end up connecting things to Pluto. That's why I was very interested in seeing other charts and how other planets at the top of other charts kind of play. Do they also similarly touch almost every, kind of have superiority over other aspects?
Mm-hmm. Well, we have looked at your charts a couple of sessions back more extensively, but I now see the Uranus is actually the one right on the MC.
Yeah.
Well, Pluto is also high in the sky, correct? But this Uranus points back to many things I remember. But yeah, how do you see it? Is that the Uranus that you remembered, Wayne, in her chart? Or was it something else?
No, I don't. I wasn't referring to any particular configuration. I just remember her enthusiasm to explore it. So.
Oh, okay. So you assumed she must have something around the MC, kind of.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
What I find interesting is that that you fixed on the Pluto, but not the Uranus on the MC, because that's a truer conjunction to the MC in this chart, but it is unaspected. I don't see any aspects to Uranus.
Very good point, Lauren. I was just going to say that because it's, totally unexpected. Even, actually, I don't know if...
None at all.
Maybe only Chiron very remotely touches it by 10 degrees opposition, but that's it. And this Chiron opposite Uranus, we all have it in the charts, pretty much everyone. So, your Uranus is a very hidden agent, but maybe something that others see but you don't?
It's actually, yeah, you're right. Others do see that. I do hear sometimes things like they can never predict like what comes from me. So people cannot put me in a box. I don't know whether that makes sense, but that kind of speaks to Uranus, like unexpected things, and also kind of how my life has been. Um, I couldn't have predicted anything, and it changes quite a lot with a lot of regularity. So Uranus does have a presence in my life, but when I think of chart, when I look at aspects, it's always Pluto that intrigues me much, much more, because there are lots of things that go on a very beneath the surface. I mean, that has more of an impact on things like my emotions, the way I handle things. I do like do a lot of like analysis, and almost kind of like analysis paralysis. I keep mulling over things again and again and again, and I do see a lot more of Pluto influence than Uranus.
Pluto is a lot more active with this exact opposition to the moon. And you were speaking about emotional effects of that. The moon is exactly opposite Pluto, and they have a T square together to the ascendant. So it's extremely activated. Not to
And my,
mention all the other aspects to all your Sagittarius planets, to the nodes. Pluto is really a big deal in this chart. You're very right that your chart is very Plutonian. It doesn't look like it in the first glance, but actually Pluto is very much.
yeah. So
Also, it rules the sign in which the MC and Uranus are. So it's kind of the link to Uranus maybe somehow. And to Mars Mercury, which is Mars Mercury is exact conjunction. And that's also say ruled by Pluto.
yeah, and that's in Scorpio, Mars, Mercury.
Yeah, that's why I say ruled by Pluto.
Yeah, exactly. It makes it like so much more intense.
Seems like
So
you've got
that's
more
why
Scorpio than Sag.
I'm sorry.
Seems like you've got more Scorpio than Sagittarius in your chart.
It does. It does feel like that to me. That's why I was very interested when Dwayne suggested, because I've always been very motivated to learn more about. When I started learning astrology, I was almost like very scared of Pluto and its influence on my chart. But the more I dig deep and the more I see its influence in touching everything, it's everywhere. And now I'm like that scare that I felt initially for Pluto, it's almost transformed into I'm so intrigued by it and I want to know more and more and more about it. So it's very interesting. Plus also Pluto has been on my ascendant for a few years, so it's been a journey for the past 5 years.
Yes. You also had Pluto square Pluto a few
Yep,
years back.
that was quite something.
And
So that was my interest. But it was so interesting to find the painter that Dwayne introduced today. I'm gonna be at looking for those paintings online. That was incredibly beautiful.
absolutely. We have another maybe 15 minutes, and if you want, I can search for the chart of the painter. If you're curious to take a look, I haven't seen it. Have you? Do you have it, Dwayne, handy, or shall I look for it?
I'll see if I can get it
Because
quick.
we only saw it briefly with the Mercury on the MC, but I didn't quite have the chance to. I thought that may be interesting for you guys at the end because we all got so intrigued by him. And maybe I should stop.
I don't know if you've already said this. Oops, sorry.
No, go ahead, Lauren. Sorry, I wasn't.
Oh, it was about her chart. I had to leave, but for a second, and so it was just about that her moon was opposite her Pluto.
Yeah.
And you guys talked, and then that would give her that fear she expressed emotionally about Pluto initially, and that it was heaven to earth type thing.
That makes sense.
Yeah. Dwayne, you can now share if you want. I stopped mine, so you can.
I can't. I can't seem to find it.
Oh, don't worry. I will open it from here then. Give me just a second to find it because I always misspell the name for some reason. It's a difficult name to spell.
Okay, I have managed to find it after all.
Okay, if you want, you can open it.
Okay. And
and we already have our topic for next week.
We do?
Libra. Yes. Okay, take a look. Moon in Libra, conjunct Mars.
Why are we looking at this? Was there something specific we were looking for?
No, I was just maybe I thought you may be curious to see the chart of the painter, generally.
And Neptune.
And Neptune, yes, I was yeah. Where is Neptune?
The descendant.
The descendant.
In Leo.
Squaring the Mercury.
And Uranus is on the ascendant, pretty much in the first. Yes. I don't know why everybody interesting to me has a concentration of 7th and 8th house in their charts. No. Anyway, okay. Well, yeah, I just wanted to have it as a final screen before we decide. I mean, there is really nothing to decide unless you want to change it for next week. Do you still want to do Libra?
Just Libra, no variation. Just we're going to examine.
It's the usual archetypes. Normally we say Libra, Venus, and the 7th house in this case. So these three things, basically, the three sides of Libra as sign, house, and planet. And that's the last one. We haven't done only Libra. But if you want, because Libra is still starting next month, we're going to have 4 opportunities to do Libra. So if you have another topic in mind, we can postpone the Libra for the following week.
I think it's good to be prepared before it comes.
Okay, well, still you can propose other ideas for the future, if anything you thought of in the meantime. And if you want, we can stick to having once a month the questions and answers as we started recently. Shall we? Just a very general one. Maybe we can do it at the end of September and then at the end of October and so on.
I guess I just want to say that from the Hebrew tradition, this new moon represents for the Hebrew calendar of 5,780 a new year. This is our new year begins with this new moon.
The one that we had today in Virgo.
Yes, it is the Jewish New Year of the year 5,780.
So that's a very important new moon.
Happy New Year.
Do you happen to have the degree?
What?
I was just asking Dwayne if he happens to have the degree of the new moon that you just said for us to check the Sabian symbol, because it was literally earlier today before we met, and maybe we can look at it. Look it
That'll
up.
be fun.
By the way, if you can read French, I found the astrological mandala in French for a
Oh,
very,
lucky
very-
you.
Yeah, I got it for 18 pounds
18.
in
And
French.
it's 200 in English.
Yeah,
Or
but
something.
What is the name of the book? I don't recognize the cover.
Oh, that's the Rudyard book, Lauren, the one you have, the astrological mandala.
Oh, I have it with this different cover. That's all.
Yeah, you have the real one. You have the
the
original
real
one. Yes.
Dun, 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 dun.
Yeah, this one
Yeah.
it's a
Are
translation.
you selling? Are you selling it?
Oh, you can find it on Amazon.
200 and something pounds.
No, it's not me you're asking.
Yeah.
I bought it for about $7.
It's a rare find now. It's a rare find.
And someone here helped me find the lunation cycle, the original one from 1971. So I feel very fortunate.
The lunation cycle is since recently already online on Amazon Kindle version. And the other day I found out, and I think this has happened recently. I don't know how, when, and who did it. But now you have a few Rudyard books on Kindle. You've got the Astrology of Personality, Planetarization of Consciousness, Person-Centered Astrology, and one more. And the lunation cycle is there as well. So that's,
Nice.
I mean, since recently.
Are there a lot of illustrations in these books? Because if so, I would like to have hard copies and not Kindle.
I think hard copies. Well, I bought my hard copies of all of those books in Watkins in London, and I think there are other places you can order from. I think there is a very famous the Astrology shop in London. It's called that, the Astrology shop in Covent Garden, and I think they sell online as well. So maybe you can call them and ask if they have copies. They can send you.
So are there a lot of illustrations in these books?
No.
In Rudyard?
No.
Oh, in that case, I wouldn't mind buying Kindle version. Okay, thanks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, almost none.
So you were going to look up the new moon of
Yes.
the Sabian symbol?
I
I've
think
got
it's
the chart.
25 degrees.
If I can share my screen, I've got the chart.
Yeah, go ahead.
Right, September 17th,
26 degree.
26 Virgo. A boy with a censer serves the priest near the altar. The first stage of actual participation in the great ritual of planetary evolution. Shall I go on with the
Yes.
text? Whether we think of the ancient mysteries or of a Catholic Mass or of some still more transcendent ceremony in which great beings charged with planetary responsibilities are involved, we are dealing with a type of archetypal activity. The ritual is archetypal in that it represents, in however small a field of activity, a portion of the evolving structure of the cosmos, as this structure is understood in its sacred sense. Every such activity is performed in the presence of God. Menial as it may be, it nevertheless acquires a sacred meaning. This is the first stage of the 36th fivefold sequence, which brings us to the close of the first half of the cycle. The individual is educated, i.e., led out into the world of transcendent activity, the world of archetypal performance. He must learn to serve humbly and with intense attention in what as yet is beyond his spiritual understanding. He learns to perform every action super-personally. He learns to practice in the presence of God.
Thank you, Dwayne. Guys, did you notice what's going on with this new moon in the 26th degree of Virgo? it is part of a cross, squaring the two nodes at the moment, almost exactly, and opposite Neptune.
Yeah,
Wow.
Neptune and Pisces. Speaking of transcendence, that Dwayne just talked about, and the symbol of the boy serving at the altar, you know, with the, what was it, the picture? That was very Virgonian. Is that a word?
Yes.
Symbol of service, and the connection. When he said transcendent, I also thought of the opposition to Neptune and Pisces.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
And that the keynote says, in the great ritual of planetary evolution. So that squaring the nodes is especially emphasized to me.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely. Is that the chart of the moment of the happening of the new moon, Dwayne?
Yes.
And we've got Uranus on the MC, just to bring us back to our topic today.
Oh my God.
How about that?
Where? Oh, mine. I see. At.
Well, I love it how we discover things on the go.
Well, we certainly have a world where unexpected, unpredictable things are happening.
That's true. Did you guys read today about something about the currency that's happening in Europe? I haven't really read the article yet, but something happening with the European currency. I just happened to glance at it just before the class, but
I want to know.
I know, me too. That's why I was asking if you guys read about it.
It would be Uranus in Taurus, Taurus being value and money sometimes.
Taurus is finance, banking, and yeah, Uranus is there, and I've been kind of scared of it. And when I saw that tweet this morning, I was like, what's going on?
There is also a quincunx to the Mars, which is retrograde in Aries at the moment. So I don't know if, is that right? Pretty much 26, 28. There is something going on with the Mars.
Maybe we should all start buying gold.
Well, you seem to know a lot more about this. So you have to advise us, Sinja. What to do?
Buy earth and beans.
I'm the only one among all of you that is unemployed right now, so.
Well, okay, we're gonna check this out about the currency.
Yeah.
Thank you for showing it. I appreciate that we're looking at the new moon and the traditional thing. If since it's the counting of the lunar year, lunar cycles rather than the solar, that's how the Jewish or Hebrew calendar of 5,780. That's because it's counting the lunar cycle, not the solar cycle.
Oh, it makes me think of one day I had a rabbi in a workshop, and he had the moon conjunct MC. A tight, and the sun is the 6th house for the rituals.
Interesting. Okay. Well, do we stick with Libra for next week or anything else?
That sounds fine. It's always interesting, whatever we choose.
Yes, I think when we do it, we would have just went into Libra. And now that we choose it, we are in Moon in Libra already, I think. Or not yet, maybe in a couple of hours. It may still be the void moon right now. But yes, going into Libra, and yeah, I like this topic personally. And very much enjoyed today. Don't know about you, but thank you so much for all your
Thank you.
contributions.
Yeah, we did.
Uh,
Thanks everybody who did presentations. I really appreciate it and enjoyed them.
Yes.
Beautiful
Food
Which
for thought.
be encouraged, Jacqueline, to also take part of this anytime.
I will, but I won't actually say anything unless I really think I know what I'm talking about. Don't want to look any stupider than I do.
Whenever you feel inspired by something, you can do it. You can give me a sign.
And as an Aries, I advise you just to jump in. And that's how I do my world. I went through the fires and the evacuation, but when Radalina said to do it, I thought, I'll do it.
Yeah,
and even if it wasn't so good, I did it, and that makes me feel happy.
And I think that's good. I think that is a good thing to do, is just jump in. But I have a Capricorn moon, so and it's in the 12th, and so I tend to sit back. If I really know what I'm talking about.
You're over preparing, I sense.
Yes, I always do. And I've got Mercury square Jupiter, so is it square? I think it's square Jupiter. So again, I think too much. I'm,
And even if I don't know what I'm talking about, I try, and I have a group of people who can help me. If I presented in the Lauren Bacall and I didn't know so much of this or that, I didn't, you do, and then we're a group, so we help each other see as a collective.
Yeah, I get that, and I actually am more encouraged as I hear more of you speak. And there were a few bits and pieces. I mean, I saw Jupiter and Aquarius in the 11th house on one of the charts. So that is really strong. This is someone who's got a real compassion or a feel for humanity and how he wanted him to I think it was the guy who wanted everybody to treat everybody correctly.
Yeah, can't.
Everybody nicely.
Jupiter in Aquarius.
Mm-hmm.
So there are things, it's just I'm shy at times.
Oh, by the way, that's another coincidence with your chart, Jean-Marc. You also have Jupiter in Aquarius and Saturn in Capricorn.
Yeah. Yeah, they're conjunct.
Yes.
Yeah, and Kant was making a semi-sextile, exact semi-sextile. I could have remembered that semi-sextiles can be powerful.
Yeah,
yes.
Yeah.
All 30-degree aspects, can be powerful.
Lauren, it was really interesting to see Bacall's struggle depicted in the chart, and her resilience through it all, and her connection with her mother. It was really interesting when we were studying the chart. I was speechless.
Yeah.
Wow.
They were all interesting. They really were. Really enjoyed it. So thank you all very much, and I hopefully see you next week.
Yeah.
You too.
Yes,
I look
thank you,
forward to
Radalina,
it.
for bringing us together. You're a
Thanks
wonderful
for coming
leader.
and for making all this happen.
Absolutely.
You.
Thanks, Regalita.
Beautiful.
See you later.
Thank you.
Bye.
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 Bye bye.